Rainer del Toro had never believed in trinkets that promised to change a person's life. That was why, when he accepted the night guard job at Alder and Elm Gift Emporium, he thought nothing of the rows of rainbow-beaded Dreamcatchers dangling from the ceiling like a flock of frozen butterflies. They were props, pretty distractions for tourists who smelled spruce trees in Whimsy and reached for their wallets. The afternoon manager, Mei Lin, gave Rainer the tour on his first shift. We stock soap carved in the shape of wildlife, magnet sets, novelty cookbooks, and, of course, the Dreamcatchers, she said, pointing to the back wall. We market them as nightmare to pep talk transmitters. She made quotation mark motions with her fingers. Customers laugh, we laugh, everyone buys too. Catchy slogan, Rainer offered, trying not to sound sarcastic. The 37-year-old ex-Marine had spent 15 months in Ramadi. Plastic beads and nylon webbing seemed powerless against the kind of dreams that still pulled him into the desert every time he shut his eyes. Mei Lin shrugged. Marketing is half theater. Just guard the place overnight, keep vandals out, and try not to fall asleep. Roger that. That evening, after the staff locked up and the mall's main lights clicked off, Rainer began his round. The Emporium was cozy ceramic bears, on shelves, racks of hoodies printed with puns about mountains, drawers of amber bracelets that smelled faintly of pine resin. To kill time, he paced the aisles, checked doors, reviewed the CCTV feeds on his tablet, and scribbled notes for the logbook. At 2:00 a.m., he settled at the sales counter to sip thermos coffee. The Dreamcatchers hung 10 feet away. Dozens of loops wound in shimmering webs, each finished with tufted feathers dyed gold or amethyst or jade. A small white sign above them read, "Trade your terror for applause. A pep talk for every nightmare." "You've got to be kidding," Rainer muttered. He had known people who collected folk charms, rabbit's feet, crystals, St. Christopher medals, but the promotional pamphlet taped beside the register went further, promising emergent motivational interventions for sleep disturbances of all intensities. According to the text, the Dreamcatcher did not merely block nightmares, it swallowed them, chewed them up, and breathed out personalized pep talks through those same feathers. On the reverse side was a testimonial from a snowboarder whose anxiety dreams allegedly morphed into passionate locker room speeches delivered by a hallucinated Morgan Freeman. Rainer laughed under his breath, yet felt an old itch just behind his sternum. If it were true, if a $10 ring of twine and beads could keep him from reliving the night Convoy 34 clicked a buried shell, wouldn't that be worth more than drugs or therapy copays? The notion was absurd, but a hungry part of him wanted absurdity to work. At 3:15, he pulled one of the mid-sized Dreamcatchers from its hook. Indigo leather rim, silver web, feathers like spilled ink. "Field test," he said to the empty shop. He propped it on the counter, sat back, and closed his eyes. A security guard was not supposed to nap, but there was no supervisor lurking, and if some petty thief tried the door, the chime would wake him. His dreams arrived instantly, as though they had been idling behind his eyelids all shift. The same road, the same moonless expanse, the same cracked radio static moments before the detonation. But then the pattern warped, the sand lifted in spirals like caramel smoke, forming a shape, no, a person, whose outline pulsed neon yellow. The figure planted its hands on its hips. "Hey, Ranger Rainer," it boomed, voice echoing through the desert. It sounded like his childhood basketball coach, a man who could bellow encouragement louder than referees' whistles. "Eyes up, soldier. You came back once, you can come back every time. Heart pounding? Excellent. Means you're alive. You know what alive people do? They choose what happens next." The apparition snapped its fingers, and the desert melted into a high school gymnasium. Bleachers, filled with cardboard cutouts, clapped in a slow crescendo. Rainer stood at half-cut in combat boots and smelled hard wood instead of diesel smoke. "Listen," the coach said. "Fear's a flare. Watch it, then move past it. I expect you back on this court in 60 seconds, carrying a grin, not a grimace." Rainer opened his mouth, but the whistle blew. Bright and metallic, he jerked awake. The chime had not rung, no one had entered. His coffee was still lukewarm, yet his heart thudded with a new, puzzling rhythm. Less panic, more astonishment. The dream had transformed mid-terror. Never had that happened before. Coincidence, he told himself, forcing a yawn? Or sleep-deprived insanity? The coach voice was certainly a product of his subconscious. But the pep talk script, too deliberate. He hung the Dreamcatcher back on its peg, then, remembering protocol, disinfected the leather rim with a wipe. The rest of the night passed without incident, but his inner skeptic and inner believer argued until dawn. Over the next week, curiosity bloomed into obsession. Rayner read every label and leaflet Alder and Elm provided. He even emailed the supplier, Starthread Crafts, requesting technical specs. The reply came from someone named Grandmother Lark. We weave attention, intention, and repetition. The feathers do the talking. No data sheets, no citations, so he redesigned the test. Variables. 1. Control night with no Dreamcatcher. 1 night with a decorative, mass-produced knockoff from a dollar store. 1 night with the shop's official version. Data. Frequency of nightmares. Intensity rating, 110. Presence of pep talk entity, overall morning mood. He made spreadsheets, set alarms, avoided caffeine after midnight. The shop's quiet after 1 o'clock IOM gave him ample opportunity. Night 1, Control delivered the usual carnage. 45 minutes of sleep, a dream of searing heat, waking at 4:11 with skin clammy and throat raw. Night 2, Knockoff, was no different. This time, the convoy's lead vehicle flipped into a ditch, taking his corporal with it. Morning mood, 2/10. Night 3, he picked a crimson Dreamcatcher with turquoise beads, stationed it on the counter, and dozed. He found himself in a bunker as mortars whistled overhead. A child's voice shouted, "Incoming, incoming, wait!" Plot twist, the ceiling dissolved into confetti, replaced by a sapphire sky lined with parade balloons. The voice, probably the 9-year-old version of his sister Yvette, chirped, "You're the reliable one, remember? Be reliable for yourself, too." Rayner fell out of the bunk onto a trampoline, bounced once, and drifted awake with a laugh. Mood 7/10. The pattern held through 4 additional cycles. Whenever he used the gift shop Dreamcatcher, terror flipped into pep within minutes. Whenever he swapped in nothing or the dollar store fake, darkness resurged. That might have convinced a typical customer, but Reiner was not typical. He had seen sleight of hand, comrades convinced by desert superstitions. Anecdotal, he grumbled, and considered placebo effects. Maybe his expectations steered the dream. He needed an external subject. At 6:45 p.m. on a Thursday, Reiner approached Ruby, the janitor who serviced the mall's common spaces. Ruby was 50-odd, wore a lotion that smelled like orange peels, and greeted everyone with "Evenin', starshine." She and Reiner sometimes shared microwave burritos in the staff lounge. "How are your nights?" Reiner asked, casual. "Prettier than the grave, except for the nightmares," she replied, too breezy for such a confession. She told him she'd been plagued by recurring dreams, black dogs circling her house, howling the numbers of upcoming bills. Stress, I guess. "Want a free experiment?" he asked, surprising himself. He handed her a moss green Dreamcatcher, allegedly trades nightmares for pep talks. Ruby examined the feathers. "It's pretty. Hang it near your bed tonight. Maybe it'll give you barking cheerleaders instead of dogs," she laughed. "Worth a shot." Next evening, they met by the service elevator. "So," Reiner pressed, "I dreamt I was in the middle of a vicious dog show," Ruby said, eyes wide. Suddenly, the judge, he looked just like Samuel L. Jackson, blew a whistle and yelled, "These bills ain't got teeth unless you feed 'em fear." Then all the dogs sat and wagged. I woke, giggling. He scribbled notes. Subject Ruby, positive transformation. Day, mood, breezy. He lent her the Dreamcatcher for a second night, results repeated. She bought it the third day, insisted on paying full price, and hugged him. Rayner's skepticism developed cracks. 3 hours before his Sunday shift ended, a different sort of disturbance arrived. A lanky teen in a black hoodie turned up at the front doors, rattled the handles, and cupped his hands against the glass. When they wouldn't budge, he kicked the bottom panel hard enough to set off trimmers in the trinket displays. Rayner strode towards him, radio ready. The boy fled into the dim mall corridor, leaving only a scuff mark. Rayner activated the lockdown protocol and called on-site security. While waiting for backup, he swept the aisles. Nothing missing, but when he looked up at the Dreamcatcher wall, one peg was empty. The indigo piece he had tested on night 1. At first, he assumed it had fallen. He scanned the floor. No. And the latch on the emergency exit behind the display was half turned. The trespasser must have slipped in through a service alley, stolen a single Dreamcatcher, and tried to exit via the main doors. Why not grab cash from the till or an armful of gemstones? The theft rattled Rayner more than he expected, as though someone had swiped an unregistered medicine from a hospital. He filed the report, replaced the missing item, and listened to the radio chatter until sunrise. Yet his pulse thrum stayed restless. 2 nights later, the teen returned. This time, he succeeded in prying the front doors. The alarm shrieked. The cameras caught him dashing to the Dreamcatcher display, snatching two purples and bolting. Rayner sprinted from the monitoring station, but by the time he reached the corridor, the kid had vanished. Mall security detained him outside 20 minutes later, a skinny 17-year-old named Felix Powers, local high schooler, in his backpack notebook paper filled with phrases like, "You got this, Tiger," and "Come on, future awaits," apparently Dream Pep transcripts. Among the scribbles were sketches of a woman with a halo labeled Mom. Rayner overheard a security guard muttering that the kid's mother had passed from cancer last month. Nightmares, the guard suggested, were eating him alive. Rayner's irritation drained into a cold empathy. Felix hadn't come to loot souvenirs, he had come hunting medicine. The lead guard radioed police, who confirmed they'd arrive in 10 minutes. Rayner asked to speak privately with Felix. The supervisor shrugged. Felix, wrists cuffed, refused eye contact. His eyes were rimmed red from sleeplessness. Rayner crouched to his height. "Why the Dreamcatchers?" he asked gently. Felix shrugged. "Heard they could, swap nightmares?" The teen's chin trembled before he could stop it. "I keep seeing Mom asking why I couldn't save her. Thought maybe it'd make her say something else." He gave a breathy laugh without humor. "Stupid, not stupid." Rayner looked at the cuffs, then at the approaching police cruiser lights outside. He had seen enough teenagers end up in systems designed to punish need. On impulse, he stood, faced the mall guard. "Let me handle this, no cops." "Store wants restitution," the guard answered. "I'll cover the cost," Rayner said. He handed over his debit card. The guard and patrol officer, having little appetite for paperwork, agreed. Felix was released. Rayner walked him back into the darkened gift shop. "Take one Dreamcatcher legally this time, on one condition. You meet me here after school tomorrow and tell me how it went." Felix nodded, eyes glassy. He selected a sunflower yellow piece, feathers tipped white like dawn. That night, Rayner could not sleep. He paced the aisles, inventory gun in hand, and wondered whether he had overstepped. Gaetan fetched him a text from an unknown number. "It worked. She told me to eat breakfast and keep drawing. I cried, then I scrambled eggs. Thank you." A photo followed, Felix holding the Dreamcatcher beside a half-eaten plate. Rayner smiled so wide it hurt his cheeks. Weeks slipped by. The mall prepared for holiday traffic, stringing lights. Alder and Elm moved the Dreamcatchers front and center, marketing them as seasonal stress swap-outs. Sales spiked. Rayner overheard customers swapping anecdotes. An insomniac accountant now dreamed of his ledger, giving him high fives. A little girl whose fever dreams turned into pep talk lullabies sung by cartoon princesses. Rayner remained cautious. Even if the objects worked mysteriously, did they have limits? Could they mutate grief in healthy ways, or merely plaster it with mantras? He needed answers, or at least deeper insight. So he emailed Grandmother Lark again, this time explaining his experiments and seeking a call. She proposed a video chat during lunch break. Her face on screen was deeply lined, hair silver and braided. Behind her, hundreds of unfinished Dreamcatchers dangled from a ceiling rack like planets. "You're the night guard who keeps feeding them data," she said without greeting. "I thank you." "Are they engineered?" "Not how you mean. They're invitations disguised as decorations. Nightmares are stories begging for revision. These loops whisper, 'Rewrite me.' The feathers deliver the pen." "That's poetic," Rayner said. "It's precise. Each spiderweb pattern confuses the nightmare's trajectory, traps it just long enough for your wiser self to step in and offer counsel. The pep talk is your voice wearing a mask of someone you trust." Rayner recalled the coach, his sister's younger self, the trampoline. "So, I'm talking to myself?" "Always," she smiled, "but you needed permission to listen." He inhaled. The simplicity jarred him more than mysticism. "Do they ever fail?" he asked. "They can't force acceptance. Some sleepers cling to fear like a metal urn, but when someone chooses relief, the catcher opens a door." Rayner thanked her, closed the laptop, and realized he was trembling. Not from distress, from responsibility. If the gift shop sold doors, people should know how to step through. On Christmas Eve, the mall closed early due to a blizzard. Only 2 employees remained inside, Rayner and Mei Lin, who had volunteered for inventory. Snow hammered the skylights. Wind warbled in the ducts. At 11:00 p.m., the power snapped off. Emergency generators flickered red across the corridors. "Great," Mei Lin muttered, rubbing her arms. "Trapped in a snow globe with novelty socks." They lit battery lanterns. Malin began counting porcelain moose figurines while Rayner checked the electrical room. Circuit breakers were intact, the outage was external. When he returned, he found Malin sitting on the floor, hugging her knees, face pale as the aisle of marble coasters. You okay? I don't like the dark, she whispered. Stupid. I know. Not stupid. He sat beside her. Nightmares? Since I was little. They hide in big black quiet. Her voice wobbled. Right now, I keep thinking about the car crash last spring. I was first on scene. Couldn't do anything. Rainer fetched a Dreamcatcher, winter white web, silver beads, feathers dipped indigo. Want a life jacket? She half laughed, half sobbed. Can it work if I'm awake? Maybe, he said, hanging it from a shelf clip above her head. Close your eyes. Pretend sleep. They breathed together. Minutes passed, punctuated only by wind thumps. Then Malin exhaled a tipping point sigh. I feel like someone is saying you being there mattered, like the driver was telling me. Rainer swallowed. Hold on to that. The generator lights blinked. Then steady power returned. The mall systems hummed alive. Malin stood, cheeks streaked wet but tranquil. Thank you. Rainer left her to finish inventory. He wandered the aisles, snow still swirling outside skylights. He picked a Dreamcatcher bone-white hoop laced with midnight threads and took it to the tiny break room. He taped it above the couch, lay down, and surrendered to sleep. This time, the nightmare began mid-explosion. Heat pressed against his eyelids, voices shouted over radios, but a whistle cut through, crisp as mountain air. The coach's neon outline jogged into view. Ranger Rainer, the figure called. Your shift's over. Time to clock back into living. Sand dissolved into green valleys. A crowd, Ruby, Felix, Malin, Grandmother Lark, even strangers he'd seen browse the display, lined the slopes waving flags. They chanted, "We choose relief." Their voices blended with wind, soft enough not to frighten him, loud enough to guide. Remember, the coach said, placing a hand on his shoulder, you can revisit memories without reliving them. That's called tour guiding your past. Rainer inhaled. The air tasted like clean snow melt. He whispered, permission granted. The mortar echo faded. The desert sun cooled to dawn. He awoke to the break room clock reading 1:07, i.e., Acham. Unlabored. He sat upright, staring at the Dreamcatcher's feathers, which fluttered, though no vent blew. They stilled slowly, like wings settling. Outside, silence blanketed the gift shop. The nightmares had not vanished. They lingered somewhere, tamed, waiting for a cue. But now he knew where the door was, and he carried its key inside his chest. Morning rose, pearl pink across the snow-piled parking lot. When Malin clocked out, Rainer remained to finish paperwork. In the logbook he wrote, incident-free. Inventory intact, feathers delivering satisfactory motivational speeches. He paused, added a parenthetical, believer status, upgraded. Then he left the shop floor, lights dimming behind him, Dreamcatchers swaying gently, already rehearsing their next pep talk for whoever needed one most.